As promised, tonight we have part two of the interview that we started yesterday with John Sheehan and Bob Kafin of the Adirondack Council. Now, John, in the park itself, I mentioned at the opening of the segment, we're talking something like 6 million acres.
That's right.
Again, time changes. Over the years, a lot of these little hamlets that may have been successful in terms of either providing timber or even lead for pencils. I mean, there's so many things. Those change over time, and they get distressed, right? Some of these hamlets.
There are 130 little communities throughout the park. Only 10 of them are big enough to be called villages, and the rest are unincorporated communities known as hamlets. And they, for various reasons, have grown up usually around water power in the park. The Industrial Revolution was one of the main reasons for communities to spring up in the Adirondacks, was mills, but also around timber operations that were created. Tupper Lake was a bustling hub of lumbering for many, many decades. And really, there's still lumbering going on, but it's been so automated now that that really is not a significant part of the employment picture in the park anymore. In fact, I think people would be surprised to find that most folks that have jobs in the Adirondacks go to work in a shirt and tie, not with leather gloves and a plaid shirt anymore. And that's a big change over time. And I think that's been reflected in the communities, and they're trying to make a transition from an industrial history into a future that is more based on tourism and providing the kinds of services that travelers and visitors to the park need and demand when they come here.
And you know what, Bob? Then that, of course, puts pressure on something that you're concerned about, which is overdevelopment. And that, how do you, that's got to be quite a challenge, because that balance between making these small communities sustainable and giving them the opportunity to grow in this post-industrial era, and then also to be able to preserve this park for generations to come, right?
Correct. The hamlets, the historic hamlets, have infrastructure the way communities always did. Yeah, right. They have roads, some of them have water and sewer, they have schools, they have churches, they have a societal infrastructure. Our interest is in seeing the existing hamlets be revitalized. That will keep the development in the core areas that historically have been developed in the Adirondacks, and not to sprawl out into the roadsides and backcountry. It really needs to be preserved for all time.
Yeah, right, for sure. I asked them before if they could just sort of tell me what the structure is. Nature Conservancy is very important. You interface with, like, the Mountain Club, right? And you interface, and anything to do with public policy, you're an advocate for preserving the nature of the park. How do they cross over?
All right, so we are principally an advocacy and educational organization.
Okay.
In other words, we carry the message of what the future of the park should be and what the vision for the future should be. The Mountain Club has a large outing community, leading hikes. It has facilities in the Adirondacks that people can use as a jump-off point for recreation in the park, so it has a primary orientation towards outdoor recreation. The Nature Conservancy is primarily a land preservation organization. It helps with the acquisition of lands and also with the acquisition of conservation easements. Now, we interface with them because we're interested in both land preservation and the recreational use of the Adirondacks, but our true north is to advocate for the protection of the wild character, which means that the lands remain relatively undeveloped, and the ecological integrity of the park, which means that the ecosystems contain all of the components, both vegetative and animal and mineral, that were there at the very beginning of time.
Right, to preserve for all the generations to come. We are only skimming the surface of what the Adirondack Council does and what these guys do. So we're inviting you back. I would love to have you on Beyond the Headlines for a long-form interview with Mike Lenz to really get in more depth into this topic. In the meantime, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to recognize that we're fortunate enough to live in a national treasure, and that they can get in touch with you with the AdirondackCouncil.org.
Absolutely.
Find out, you can volunteer, you can donate, get your voice heard, right, especially if you live in the park.
And if you're a student, we have a paid internship program, and we'd be happy to have your resume either at the Albany office or in our main office in Elizabethtown to help you figure out if maybe a career in conservation is something that you'd like to do.
Great. Okay. Well, John, thank you. Bob, thank you. Real pleasure to meet you, and thank you for coming on.
You're welcome. We'd like to
Raise
come back again
awareness with
sometime,
us.
Jesse.
Anytime. You're
It's a
always
pleasure.
welcome. To see this interview again, you can head to our website, looktvonline.com.